Well, if you remember, we started this mini-series of Colorado with a fantastic archery elk hunt featuring our team member Carl Lidke and a friend of ours, Chuck Bender. Now, Chuck never did get to connect on a bull, but he certainly had a great time and had some great opportunities. And also keep in mind that the success rate on taking an elk with your bow in Colorado is in the single digits. Well, over the past few years, since they've kept track at the ranch, the opportunity rate on elk during the archery season has been over 80%. Now just think about that. This is not a fenced-in ranch. This is open country on both private and public lands. Well, this week we're going to do a little archery hunting for mule deer. Now also remember, we're here at a period in September where the archery season crosses over to the black powder season, also for mule deer and elk. Now, guest of the ranch, Todd Swinford, and also one of our NEO staff members, is out there trying to take a mule deer with his bow. And if you rewind a little bit to one of our earlier segments in this mini-series, we took you out to one of the hayfields on our first night there, where we're going to glass, watch, and do some scouting and come up with a game plan. Well, we certainly saw plenty of deer that night, both numbers and quality, and we knew the general area we wanted to pursue these animals in. Now, as with any of our 5-day hunts, we wanted to try and have a plan for each of our evening hunts. And after what we saw that first night, our plan A was to set up a ground blind right at the base of the foothills and those hayfields in the areas that we saw these deer come out. Well, over the first 2 nights, Todd and I saw plenty of deer. We had some does come close, but I do have to say those bigger bucks never really did the same thing twice, and we never did close the distance with our plan A. So moving on to plan B, we decided to move up into those foothills following some of the well-worn game trails that we had seen so many of these deer using. And that takes us to our evening hunt of day 3, where we climbed to the top of one of those foothills, which after climbing it, I think the term foothills needs to be redefined, at least just a little bit. Now, we had a great view of the rim and of the foothills, and a great view of those hayfields that the deer were going to. Well, in our minds, Todd and I thought this plan was flawless. There was one trail coming down to that rim, the wind was perfect, and we were set up in position. We thought there was no way these deer weren't coming by us. Well, a couple hours into our hunt, we heard a footstep over to our right. I could see the deer's leg. Todd had a better view. He indicated to me that it looked like a decent 4x4 and that it was about 18 yards away. Well, as luck would have it, our flawless plan diffused immediately. That buck knew something was up. He turned around and walked away from wherever he came from, never to be seen again. Well, keep in mind, like I said, we're also in the middle of the black powder season for mule deer, and Steve, a guest of LPR, was located below us near the fields filming himself. And as our night was growing to a close, Todd and I both heard a shot, and a short time later, heard a second shot. So our anticipation of seeing what was going on below us grew, and the following is what happened.
Bah!
Well, Rick, I love this muzzleloader hunt.
You did it again, didn't you? You did it again, bud.
Yeah, this was really kind of fun tonight. I hunted up on the hill over this water tank, and every deer that came down drank out of the water tank. And I thought, boy, this is going to be easy. So a big buck comes out and he goes 50 yards farther, so now I got a 150-yard shot. But it was a nice buck, and I took a shot and I missed. So this one's milling around back there, and then he comes walking in right toward the water tank and turns out 50 yards, walks out there, and I thought, ah, man. I got a little different rest and blatted to get him to stop.
Now, in addition to Steve's deer, Chuck Bender was also fortunate enough to take a nice mule deer with his muzzleloader on one of his evening deer hunts. Now, Todd and I kept adjusting throughout the week, gaining knowledge of these deer each time out, but just running out of time, and on the last evening of our hunt, Todd set up in a cluster of scrub oaks near a pinch point coming down out of the hills, and before he knew it, the deer started coming out. And with about a half hour of daylight left, a decent 4x4 showed up at what Todd figured was about 40 yards. And for Todd, this is definitely a makeable shot. Unless, of course, that deer's actually 50 yards out in that long grass. Lesson number 1. If you carry a rangefinder with you, use it. Now, I'm just kidding, Todd. It was a tough situation and a tough shot at that distance in that grass.